a couple years ago, just in time for COVID, right? But I'm here in San Francisco now. You can hear this. This is the studio in the background, and I'm always continually making new books at all times. And it's you know, it's a great job. It's a weird job. Like, this is something that now feels very much what I was always supposed to be, but it was never something that I really thought about doing when I was a kid. And you know, I've done everything. I've done all kinds of different books, which I'll show you. What they call me is a paper engineer, but I'm also an illustrator. I've illustrated about half of my books and done the paper engineering or making pop-ups. I don't really like to call it paper engineering as much because it's so technical, right? You know, like, it sounds like I went to school for this, you know, and I'm an engineer and I'm like really there's math and I've got an abacus and, you know, like all this computer stuff. No. You know, I'm cutting and folding paper. You know, I prefer like pop-up creator, pop-up maker, and it's like maybe a 3D illustrator or something like that, because oftentimes that's what I'm doing. But I'll let you know a little bit more about that in just a bit. So I think we're going to switch over to I'm going to share my video here. Here we go. Let's go. Share, and there we go. And we're going to get started with my presentation, and I'll show you. I like show and tell. You know, I could sit up here and talk, and you can see my head, which is super boring. I think instead I'd rather share with you visuals. So let's get started. You're sharing Keynote. Okay. Let's make sure that that Keynote is play. Hopefully you're seeing this video. And this is a pop-up from one of my books that I worked on with Disney. So when I'm making pop-ups like this, you know, it's just, I want it to be spectacular and cool and fun and interactive. And that's kind of where I'm at with my work these days. But, you know, like I said, I didn't start off wanting to be this, wanting to do, you know, pop-up books. Let's see. Let's see if it lets me do this. Oh, hold on a second. There we go. Okay, wait, it's moving too fast. Hold on, let me pull back. There we go. Okay, so like I said, I didn't really even think about making pop-up books. It wasn't even something that was in, you know, my mind when I was a kid. I had one pop-up book actually when I was a kid, and this was it. It's a dinosaur book. All right, this dinosaur book was really, you know, it was really cool. I love dinosaurs. I still am like totally into dinosaurs. In fact, recently I've gotten back into dinosaurs because I want to do another dinosaur book. And I've been doing research and everything, but this is what it looked like back when I was a kid. You know, it was very simple pop-ups. And I remember getting this after going to I think I had a surgery or something. And this was like the gift. I was so excited to get this book, brought it home, looking at it, studied it, you know, all these things. I love dinosaurs, very simple pop-ups in it, beautiful art. But this is kind of what it looked like after about 2 hours at my house because, well, I had a little sister. And, you know, everything that I got usually, you know, got destroyed by my little sister. Anyways, yeah, she was a spawn of Satan, actually. But no, really, I didn't. I was just a regular kid. I loved making artwork as a kid, and we moved a lot. So I sometimes I feel like that may have affected, you know, me really being much more focused on making art and making things and building things, especially out of stuff. Like, we didn't have a lot of money, so it was always out of garbage or leftover paper or whatever. You know, anything that was left over, especially boxes and cardboard and whatever, all stuff that I could get my hands on. That's what I like to make stuff out of and make artwork out of. And there was always a big drawer. And as you can see, when I was a little kid, there's my little sister in the background. And of course, she would inevitably destroy whatever I made. So this is a piece of, this is a drawing I did back in like first grade. And, you know, my dinosaurs were very wildly colored back then. And you can see I kind of had a bit of an ego, you know, even back then, you know, my name is like real big up top. But I've always loved drawing. I think that I probably knew how to draw before I knew how to write my name And it's just, that's the way that I express myself. And it's always been that way. This is a drawing I did. This is a poster that I did in 2nd grade. And this was for the church poster contest. And let me tell you, I worked on this poster so long. You know, I made sure all the different animals were there. There were 2 of every one. You know, I didn't like drawing people at the time, but I sure stuck Noah way up there. Every kind of animal that I liked was stuck in there. And you know, as it comes to as you come to find out, like, of course, the picture of Jesus won. Jesus always wins in church poster contests. But, you know, I was really proud of this poster. I still am to this day. And to be honest, I've gotten to make a Noah's Ark book. So I guess in my sort of way, I won in a little way. Anyways, it's not about that. It's about like making cool stuff that you love. Oh, look at that. That has noise. Let me make sure that that's muted. All right. Can you all hear me? Okay. I'm going to guess you can. So these are...
You're coming through fine, Matthew.
Okay, cool. All right. So this is the first series of books I was able to do very early on in my career that I'm most known for, I think. This dinosaur series, Encyclopedia Prehistorica, and its 2 sequels, Sharks and Other Prehistoric Sea Creatures and Mega Beasts. They're all about prehistoric things. This is my love for paleontology coming out as art. I did these books back in 2004, 5, 6, around that time. And I didn't even know what I was doing. I mean, I knew what I was doing with paper engineering because I'd been working with Robert Sabuda for a number of years, but, you know, I didn't know how to illustrate. I didn't know whatever. And, you know, I just kind of fell upon this. These books were incredible to do. I loved being able to research dinosaurs, and they've been translated into like 25 different languages over the years. They still are selling. In fact, I think they had like a thing on Amazon recently just for this, the Dinosaur Book, which you know, of course my publisher doesn't tell me about that stuff. This is the next series, which was Encyclopedia Mythological. I love, well, I get nerdy about stuff. Okay, you're going to find that out just about like everything. But like I love monsters, and I love mythological stories. So these were incredible to make, these books. I did 3 of them: Gods and Heroes, Dragons and Monsters, and Fairies and Magical Creatures, all 3 in the Encyclopedia Mythological series. And I got to do like research and find out about all these different creatures from myth from all over the world. And I think these books represented like the next evolution of what I was doing. And they got more and more complex, but I was learning a lot of new tricks in the pop-up world. And what I love about the dragon book, especially, there is a pop-up Chinese dragon, a lung or whatever. I think that's how it's pronounced. And it actually uses, and I actually went to Chinatown and saw these really beautiful, like sort of decoration garland dragons that, you know, they put up all over the place. And I was like, I really want to use them because they had tissue paper in between to use the long, like serpentine sort of body sections. And so I actually used those, that tissue paper, those garlands inside this book, this dragon book. And when it opens, not only does it look cool because it like unfurls in all these different ways, it also sounds cool. Like you can hear the paper crinkle. And I love that kind of thing. So these books were incredible for me to complete because there were some really intense, odd mechanisms in them that really turned out really very beautifully. I've done a number of different books that are like fairy tales and classic stories. Like I said, I did Noah's Ark, which was my favorite Bible story growing up. Not that I was incredibly religious, but I always just loved that story. I think it was about someone having faith, you know, and whatever your faith is in. And I love that. I love that story. The Jungle Book, which I felt kind of like Mowgli myself growing up. So that was a great story. And I was able to retell that one. Nursery Rhymes was another book I did because those really made an impact on me when I was very, very young, the sing-songy nature of fairy tales. And also Cinderella. Which who doesn't feel like a princess like Cinderella, right? I mean, everyone's gone through that stage. So these were great books to be able to create. And I feel at times that I always tried to pick stories that really mean something to me that I have a connection to. I was able to do a book with Maurice Sendak, and that was called Mommy. And Maurice was a friend of mine. I worked with him. Here's how it works. I was able to work with him, and I knew him from working on another project. And he wanted to do this pop-up book. And at first, I was like, "Listen, Maurice, he took a long time finishing artwork." And I was saying, "Maurice, it's going to take you a while, so don't worry." He's like, "Oh, no problem, no problem. I'll be done like that." It took him 4 years to finish this book, but it was beautiful. It was great. Got a lot of attention. I was so proud to be able to work with him, and he was a friend, and I really do miss him. I really miss him. Another illustrator that I was able to work with, I don't have pictures of it here, was Tommy DePaolo, who recently passed away this past year, and I love Tommy. I had just talked to him in the winter last year, and he sounded great. And so I miss him. I was able to work with both of these amazing, legendary illustrators early on in my career, and I'm very thankful. They were very inspiring, and they taught me how to act, and sometimes how to not act. But I'm not going to tell you who did what, right? I'm not getting in trouble. I've been able to work with a lot of licensed properties. Those are stories that we know that, either TV shows or they're cartoons or they're movies or whatever. Licensed different big properties. Okay. And one of them, and I did this book, this is just such an odd book, but it turned out to make get a lot of attention, was this Game of Thrones book. And what it actually does, I want to make books beyond a book, right? A pop-up book that, you can enjoy like a book, but this book also became a diorama, sort of a giant map of the world of the Game of Thrones. And this actually, it's funny, I was on vacation when I came up with the idea for this, on the call for the pitch for this book. And I just came up with it. I don't know why. I was like, oh, it's really cool about the map. Wouldn't it be cool if it unfolded? Well, that's how this all came about. Sometimes inspiration hits you, right? And I didn't know how I was going to do it, but as soon as I got back to my studio, I figured it out. And these were incredible. And I've done several books in this format. That's kind of what I'm moving forward with a lot of my work, is kind of making books beyond a book, right? You can enjoy it like a book, and it can be that item, but it can also be something else. That excites me. The next book that I did, okay, so I'm a huge Potterhead, and I wasn't as much of a Potterhead when the books came out, but once the movie started coming out and the kids started getting older, I'll admit my favorite book is not the first Harry Potter. I like the later ones. I especially like the Half-Blood Prince, and I love the Prisoner of Azkaban the most. But so reading the books, I'm much more of a fan of the books. But these books were inspired mainly by the movies. But to be able to play in Hogwarts and with all those characters, and to be able to make pop-ups of it, oh my God! So this book actually turns into a map of Hogwarts, and the outlying areas is like Forbidden Forest and Hogsmeade, and it has all these little windows. You can sneak inside. You can look inside the buildings. And you can see different scenes from movies. This was so fun. It was so hard, so fun to be able to create. And let's see what else. What else have I got? Well, okay. I'm a huge Disney fan. All right. Disney animation is what inspired me as a kid to draw. I used to make my family take me every year when Fantasia would come out in the theaters. I know we can't do that now, which is really unfortunate. But every year we would go see Fantasia, and I just love looking at it. Yeah, there are some boring parts, but I love just the art of everything. And so Disney movies have always inspired me, even the sad ones like Dumbo, which I love. And I love princess movies. But the main Disney movie that really brought me back into Disney when I was a little older, like in high school, was Little Mermaid. That was my jam. Still is my jam. You have not seen or heard anything until you've heard me, a 49-year-old man singing "Poor Unfortunate Souls" by Ursula from Little Mermaid, because I love that song. So I was able to do a Disney princess pop-up storybook, and it had all these different Disney princess stories. And then, of course, when Frozen hit, Disney calls up and goes, "Hey, you want to do a Fro?" And they didn't even finish the word. I was like, I want to do that. So I did a Frozen pop-up. That was incredible, really fun. But I was hearing it at night after long days of work. I was hearing that song in my head, and it was, you know, got to me after a while. Another film that completely inspired me when I was especially a younger artist, or at least in school, in college and stuff, was The Nightmare Before Christmas. The art was amazing. I'm a huge fan of stop motion animation, and I love making models. I'm a huge action figure collector, which I'll talk about later, but I love the idea of making models. I used to do a lot of it myself. I might have even taken that path had the right things come up when I was younger of an animator, because I kind of animate in my own sort of way. But to be able to work on this, Nightmare Before Christmas, illustrate it, to be able to, you know, get notes from Mr. Burton himself, and mainly they were like, "You're drawing Jack wrong." You know, look, I'll take it. I'll take it. It was awesome, and this book is another one where I kind of I evolved in a new direction, and it was great. So and it's one of the things I'll talk about later on. Constantly changing. It's important with your work. Okay, if any of you know, if you've seen any of my videos or whatever, I'm a huge, huge Star Wars fan, like mega Star Wars fan, like it is religion to me. Okay, so I've done 3 Star Wars books now, and those were the 3. Let's see if we got some video here. Let's see if it comes up. Come on. Oh, there we go. Is it going to start? There we go. So my first Star Wars book came out in 2007 for the 30th anniversary of the original A New Hope Star Wars movie. And it had light up lightsabers like that. It had Darth Vader helmet. It was really amazing. It was a New York Times bestseller for a number of weeks, which it's a pop-up book. Come on. But it was incredible. And I'm so thankful. I was so thankful to be able to work on it, work with Lucasfilm. They were awesome. I did a second book, which was about the prequels. Didn't do as well. But, you know, it was still awesome to be able to play in the Star Wars universe. And my third book has the entire trilogy. And it just came out last year, I think, when the last movie came out. And you can see this is one of those map books. So it turns into like this giant diorama with all of the different scenes from every Star Wars movie that has ever been in there. And, you know, and it has all these cool pull tabs where things like come out and surprise you. I mean, this one was intense, but amazing, amazing. You know, I am, anytime they call me and say, "You want to do a Star Wars book?" You got it. You got it. I'm into it. This is one of my newest books. Actually, just came out a month ago. It's called What's Up, Fire Trap. So, you know, like I said, I was talking about like always changing, you know, always evolving. And, you know, I do these big books and they're like, you know, big movie books, big whatever. I've always wanted to have a series of very young pre-K, you know, because we don't want to leave those readers out, you know, and let them, you know, you see one of these gigantic books and they're just like little hands can't necessarily play with them. Well, this one, let me make sure it plays. So this is my first in the new series called Pop Magic with Abrams. And these are board book pop-ups. So they're, you know, they have simple like lift flaps. There's some pop-ups inside. Then the entire book will actually unfold, come apart, and become a playable fire truck. So this is What's Up, Fire Truck. It actually turns into a fire truck. You can play it. You can look at it as like a book. You can, you know, it basically, and you can even play with the ladder while it's a fire truck, or look through it as a book, and you can learn about, you know, fire trucks. But this is a part of my books or this is a new direction that I want to go, along with having all the other more complicated things, to really make board books, and especially for really, really young kids, because they play with books. Why not make a book you can play with and read and enjoy, like both ways? I love it. I think it's a really important part of development. So I'm really proud to be able to be moving in this direction as well as doing, you know, my usual monstrous books. Speaking of, like this one, this is my latest Harry Potter book, where I'm really, again, so lucky to be able to work with the folks with Pottermore. This book is a little different than my previous one. It becomes a full, this is the pop-up guide to Diagon Alley and beyond. And this book, oops, let's go back. Oopsies. Let's see. Oops. There we go. So this book, Diagon Alley, just came out like 2 days ago. And you can enjoy it like a book, of course. You can go through each page. It's all locked up like a regular book. And you can explore Diagon Alley and all these other cool places within the world of Harry Potter and within the wizarding world. There are all these cool pull tabs. I got one right here. I'll show you. Not trying to sell, but I just think it's cool. Oh no, well, I can't show it because then I would have to stop sharing. So I'm not going to do that. I'll show you that later. But anyways, it's cool because it's got pull tabs that you can like explore inside the buildings and see all these scenes. But then it can also, the book can open up so you can display it on your shelf and make a whole diorama. And it's so much fun. It was a weird sort of engineering task. Oh, I keep doing that, don't I? It was a weird, sort of difficult new way of kind of creating a book because it's oriented differently, but I thought it'd be really cool and exciting. So that just came out. And I collaborated with another artist, excuse me, for this book. His name is Kevin Wilson. He's in the UK. We've done 3 books now together. He's great. He sort of does this like fantastical photo collage that looks slightly painted, and so it's like beautiful. So to be able to work, I've worked with several different artists, in my career. It's so fun and shocking. Yeah, it really is. Collaboration can be a really amazing thing because oftentimes you can really be inspired to do things that you wouldn't necessarily do. So people ask me all the time, they say, how do you make pop-up books? You've done all these books, you're so fabulous, whatever. No, they say, well, how do you do it? Is it like a program? Is there whatever? What do you do? Well, here's what I do. I got this machine. It's called the Pop-Up Factory, right? I just stick a bunch of paper inside and out comes a book. That's it, right? Yeah, it's super easy, right? A little different than that. It's a much more, it's a much more difficult process. But after all these years of creating books, it is a natural process for me. And so let me show you. Now, with all books, you have to start with an idea, you have to start with concepts, and you have to start with, oh, wait, I'm going to show something else. Before I always talk about concepts, and okay, so yeah, you start with concepts, you start with outlines, and you start, with just the story, right? Or what's going to be the information that's going to be inside. When I actually start working on the book, these are the materials that I need to use to build my prototypes in my studio. And besides a computer, besides a scanner, these are the materials I use, and they're pretty simple. Lots and lots of cardstock. I typically use 110-pound cardstock, white cardstock usually, just because I can draw on it better, but I have colored cardstock if I want to use it. And I use lots of tape. I use an artist tape, but you can just use, masking tape, or I don't typically use clear plastic tape unless it is double-sided tape. I don't use that clear like Scotch tape as much. I do use it in my crafts on YouTube, but when I'm making real prototypes, I always use like an artist tape that has fibers in it, so that the tape hinges that it makes, it works a little better. Let's see, what else do I use? Scissors, lots of scissors. I got a million different sizes, whatever, to cut up with. Lots of glue, and of course, X-Acto knives to get those really, hard cuts. And now, when I'm really starting the story, like I said, I need to do research. I need to write stories. I need to have the manuscript. Hello? Hold on a second. Hey. Okay. So I need to have the manuscript. I'm sorry. Someone just came in the studio downstairs and it freaked me out. So I start with a manuscript. I start with an outline. Sometimes when I don't draw a pop-up typically. I don't like to, at least. I don't draw what it's going to look like before I engineer it. I just write words, like in my outline. I may say, if I want to make that T-Rex or whatever, right? Or if I wanted to make something else happen, I think about what I want to see in that scene, and I'll write that down. But I don't say it's going to be this big and it's going to have it shaped like this. Sometimes I'll draw it if I'm working with like a film company or something, just to give them an idea. But I always warn them, like, it's not necessarily going to look like this. This is just an idea. And so we start with the words, start with the concepts, we move on to the next step, which is actually cutting and folding paper and seeing how the pop-ups work. I don't really start from a template in the beginning. Oh, and I start with my mantra, of course. You know, when I'm making my pop-ups, I have a mantra in my head that I'm always trying to remember. So I learn the rules, and what I'm saying is learn the rules about paper engineering. Learn what works, how something works, and then the next one, number 2, is break rules. Like if you want to do anything really cool, you've got to push beyond what is known, what rules exist, and you got to break those rules and see what new things you can make happen. And when you break those rules, you learn step 3. You learn new rules, right? And then you just repeat steps 1 through 3 over and over again when I'm doing things, you know, like when I'm creating new pop-ups. And of course, the most important ingredient to all of this is mistakes. Mistakes. I'm constantly making mistakes. Sometimes I'll have like the most frustrating day filled with nothing positive from the day's work. I mean, I might have, you know, I'll be exploring these different mechanisms and cutting up paper and figuring things out, and nothing will come from it. But maybe some of those things that I built, I might be able to use another time, or I'm learning new things along the way. So I always tell people, you know, anyone from students to adults, whoever who's trying to learn something, like, don't be afraid to make mistakes. You're going to make them through life. You're going to make them through anything you do. Just don't be frustrated and don't let them stop you getting somewhere. Because if you do, then you know, those things that you have in your head that you want to do, they're not going to happen, right? So I always let yourself make mistakes. It's okay. I see it in my niece and nephew. Sometimes they want to give up on something because automatically they don't get it and they want to stop. And it's like, don't stop. Keep doing it. Oh, I'm not the best drawer. Well, keep drawing. I wasn't the best drawer when I started out. I'm still not the best drawer. I make mistakes, and then I pick the pencil back up and I draw some more. You know, so don't be afraid to make mistakes because you learn from them. We need mistakes. Nobody does anything perfectly. So this is when I start, you know, okay, I start making the pop-ups, right? And I'm just cutting and folding paper, gluing it together, or, you know, using double stick and taping it. You can see with this horse pop-up, this horse pop-up was from a book that I never actually released. Maybe I'll release it one day. It was a Sleeping Beauty storybook. And I actually studied horses, but you can see it's just like cut up paper, and I just kind of, you know, mash it together, make sure, see how the mechanism can work. It's very, very rough. You can see it's very, you know, I mean, might draw on things after I've sort of created it. And then the second one, it's more developed. And you can see actually there are characters on the back, and, you know, I'll add to it. Now, once I get it to a point, and I love the way that movement is, you know, like the two characters move on the back of the horse, and then the horse is jumping over something, like, oh, that kind of stuff is really fun to me. I actually studied horses. I went to visit a ranch and saw some horses, and I was looking at how they jumped. It was so cool. Animals are amazing. I think when I'm making pop-ups, I always try, at least, to mimic the motion of characters or animals, or, you know, or make the motion of it popping up be interesting. So that's very important to me in my work. So that's what it looked like in the beginning. It's really rough. It's ugly. I mean, my studio is filled with paper. It's filled with paper. It's a mess. I mean, mine's a mess right now. I got to sweep it up later. This is an early version of my pop-up from the Star Wars book I just recently did, where it's the Battle of Endor. I don't know if anyone's seen Return of the Jedi, but it's the forest planet. And I was so excited when I made this. And this is all just like by hand. You can see I just like sketch on there barely. And this first part here, you can see, we're going to get up close. I'm gonna pause it there. That is what's called a scout walker, an ATST, an all-terrain scout transport walker. And it's walking. What was really cool about this pop, and I was so excited when I figured it out, you can pull a tab over there and it actually makes something walk. All right, that's like, I never did that before. Now, when I tried to post it on my Instagram, just excited that I was making something like this happen, and it didn't at all show what was in the book. I got in trouble with Disney and my publisher. They're like, take that down, you can't show that. They're like, oh God. But yeah, so this is what it looks like. It's just cut and folded paper, and I'm like figuring out how the things work, and it's a big mess. It looks really rough. It's not perfect. Sometimes I'll rebuild this over and over by hand before I actually get to refining it and making what are called die lines. Die lines are the lines that trace all these pop-up pieces and then are die cut. They're cut out and made in manufacturing. But we'll get to that point later on. Here's some more just like rough pops. These are just handmade. You can see all the tape on them. First is a princess pull tab, and she's getting ready to go to the ball. And, of course, like all princesses do, when she gets ready, not only does her dress get bigger, but also she gets a crown and her hair gets bigger. So I loved that. That was fun. And I just sketched on top of the paper that I was making there. The second one is my first, oops, I gotta go back because it's so good. Wait a minute. Super psych. There we go. Now this one that's on the right is my first attempt at making a Transformer pop-up. So I love Transformers. I'm a huge action figure collector. Like I said, I'm a Star Wars fan, and I have every Star Wars figure from 78 on to now. I'm allowed to collect the 3 3/4 figures because if I started collecting all the like large ones and small ones and medium ones, like I'd be out of house and home. But I have like thousands of Star Wars figures. And I also collect Transformers. Transformers I love. I feel like Transformers are almost, well, pop-ups are kind of paper Transformers, right? Transforms from flat to anything, right? And so when I was able to sort of engineer a transform, there's a car and there it's a robot. And this was another book that like took me into my, like helped me evolve to the next level of what I was doing. It's incredibly hard, but this book was probably one of my coolest ones. I don't know. I mean, each book, everyone always asks me, well, like, what's your favorite book? Well, I have a favorite, but I have parts of each one that I really, really love. But this book was really hard for me, but it also took me to a new level of my work, which was just fun and exciting. And also, I love transforming robots. So there. This is the next step of the pop-up book. So after I've engineered everything, right? I've engineered it, and it's a rough pop. I have to carefully take it apart, trace all the pieces in Illustrator. I'll trace them, I'll actually scan the pieces after they've been cut up and taken apart. And I'll trace them using, vectors in Illustrator, Adobe Illustrator, so I can replicate the pieces, rebuild the pop-up, make sure all the folds and everything is, and all those things are accurate and everything, so that later on, once I've refined everything, I can send all that to the manufacturer and they can rebuild this pop. These are prototypes. This is a sketch dummy or sketch prototype that goes to the publisher. And you can see, like, I have sketch drawings on there for the characters. This book was done recently after the Transformer book, and you can see because there's actually transforming Cinderella. Look at that. I mean, when I was making that pop, I was so excited. But that every time that I would pull that tab when she would transform, I always made the same sound effect where it was like, oh, look, and I'm so drab and ugly. Oh, look at me. Oh, it's just awful. And oh, my fairy godmother. Oh, look, I'm beautiful. Oh, it's gorgeous. So like every time, yeah, I'm always amazed by that. And I probably squeal just like Cinderella did every time. The lower pops, now when you work on, these two are rejected pops, or rather they didn't make it because of costing into the book. And that one is for Aladdin and the other is for Pocahontas. And these are two books two pops that didn't make it in the final version of the book. Unfortunately, that pop that's on the right actually is what's called a Peep Show. They're old-timey sort of pop-ups that were used. They've been used in different sort of movable books since, gosh, over 120 years, I guess. But where you kind of pull this sort of accordioned little scene towards you so you can look through and look in the peephole. Well, I made one, and I'm going to use this on a book in the future. It's an automatic peephole. So you don't have to pull anything. You just open the page and that thing goes right up and you can see the scene inside. So these two didn't make it, but you can see this gives this editor's prototype. This gives, or the sketch dummy or the sketch prototype, whatever you want to call it. This gives the editor, it gives the marketing team, everybody from Disney, they can get a look at this and they go, oh, okay, this is how the book is going to work. That's how the pop-up's going to look. could you change this? Could you change this? So this is the prototype for them to essentially rip up and tell me everything needs to be changed. No. But this is the book that, that they can look through and they can understand what the book is going to look like. All right, now this is a really sped up version of what it looks like in my studio when I'm making a pop-up, okay? So you can see I'm building it by hand. I mean, really, it's a mess. Sometimes it can take me a day to do something, and sometimes I'm gonna pause it here in a second. Pause it right there. Sometimes this stage of making a pop-up book, like just one pop-up in a book, it can take it anywhere from like 2 weeks to really get something designed down to like a day or even less. Like there are sometimes when I have that engineering in my head thinking about it, I know what I'm going to do and it will come. If it's a smaller pop, usually those take like a day. I don't know, but like the big ones, sometimes they take a while and they take a lot of refinement. I make a lot of failures along the way. So once, like I said, I'll make this pop-up, I make it by hand, and if I like it, take it apart. And the next step, and this is super sped up, obviously. Oops. Nope, I moved too fast. So the next step, after I've built everything by hand and disassembled it, I trace it in the computer again using Illustrator, which you're going to see in a minute. You're going to see my lines, like so you can see I'm actually tracing all those pieces so that I can make artwork for them. Sometimes I'll sketch by hand, sometimes I'll sketch in the computer. Sometimes I'm making artwork for like a sketch for another artist to follow, but I'll put the color artwork underneath a layer with the die line so that I know where to cut them out, and then I'll reassemble it. I'll reassemble color dummies to make sure that they work right, and that's kind of a sped up version of the whole process of making artwork for making a pop-up book. But like I said, after I've done the engineering, after they've been made die lines, the next step is making the art. Sometimes I am the illustrator. I'm the color illustrator, the color art, the person who makes the color art, the illustrator. I started off doing illustration. I used to be an ink drawer and watercolorist, but I moved on after dinosaurs to being a cut paper collage artist. I figured since I'm cutting up the paper to make pop-ups, why not cut up the paper to make the art? So sometimes I digitally cut paper collage artist, and then I make all these different papers. I have this huge library of papers. Lately, I haven't been able to do as much color illustration, but that's changing here soon. So I'm always trying to do something different, but sometimes I do it by hand, sometimes digital. When I'm doing the illustration, it's a lot easier because I know where and what everything is supposed to look like, and I can make changes pretty quickly. But what I do is I draw the picture first, and that's like sort of my map, right? That's what I'm gonna. Then the next step is like cutting out using an X-Acto knife sections of all these different colored papers that I make. Usually I use acrylics, and then I let them dry, and they're very washy, and there's different gradations of color and things like that. So I'll cut out sections of color from these different paper using an X-Acto knife, and I'll glue them into place. And sometimes for even such a small piece of art like this shark, the cover of the Prehistorica Sharks book, there might be 20 different pieces of different pieces of colored paper all glued together into one piece of art. And that little shark there, you can see when I'm gluing it together, I use like tiny forceps to hold those pieces of papers in place underneath sort of a acetate. That's like I said, it's like my map. I know exactly where everything's supposed to go when I use that, my drawing. And then I glue it together, and that becomes cut paper collage. When I was making this Pixar celebration book, when I'm making the pop-up pieces, it kind of looks like roadkill, right? Like splatted, flat, and they're like in different pieces, right? Because when you're making a pop-up book, sometimes characters' arms and legs aren't necessarily attached at the same places. So I will draw what I want in these different pieces, and I'll make the artwork on different sheets of paper by hand. I'll glue it. For example, for this book, they wanted me to make original artwork out of cut paper collage. And so it's in all these different pieces. I have to scan it in, and then I have to merge those die lines that I talked to you about and the artwork together. You can see that, like for some of these books, all the pop-up pieces, there may be hundreds of pieces per book. So there's going to be hundreds of pieces of art per book. So it's a lot of process there. I know that when I work with artists as that illustrate with me, they get freaked out by all the things they have to do. But it's like, just be calm. You're only, I'll show you what you have to do. It's kind of fun sometimes too to be able to do things in pieces, because if you don't like one of the pieces, you can just, change it. So these are just like some of the pieces that were for the Cars pop. And then there you can see how they all kind of go together later on after they've been scanned, after, they've been, a lot of those pieces for those characters were reversed and flopped on the other side. And so that's what they look like with their assembly. You can actually see some of those lines on the edges and on some of the folds, and those are die lines. So that's a prototype that you're seeing right there. When I'm working with other artists though, how do I communicate what they need to draw? If I sent them die lines with no markings about what they had to draw or whatever, no art guides, no artist guide, they would freak out. I'm telling you, because it looks like a puzzle. You don't know what's what. And so what I do when I'm working with artists is I'll make these huge art guides, and I will draw out what I need them to draw. And I will also add, things like reference material. So you can see up at the top, there's Optimus Prime and all the pieces that I needed for Optimus for the artist to draw. His name is Emiliano Santalucia. He lives in Bologna. In Italy. He's great. He's a big Transformers fan. And his artwork, his finalized artwork is actually in the gray on the right. So you can see how he followed my artwork almost completely. Exactly, except he made it like amazing. And then below, those are some rough sketch guides for the Harry Potter book. And, we'll use actual photo reference, and we'll tell him, this was for Kevin Wilson, who worked in all the different pieces that they were supposed to make, so that we could create the pop-ups in that book. So they're pretty intense. Excuse me, I'm sorry. I'm really not tired. I get up super early in the morning. But don't you hate that when yawns come like that? Oh, I hate that. But so like, as a matter of fact, right now I'm working with an artist, two different artists right now, on an upcoming Jurassic World book, which will be out sometime next year, hopefully, and Marvel superheroes. Woo! I love Marvel superheroes. So I'm working with these artists, and I feel like when I work with illustrators, see, rather than me taking the art and then making it pop, no. I do the pop first. I'm staging the play, right? Like, I'm blocking it all out, and I think about like a cake, right? Like, you need the baked cake before you put the frosting on, right? So the color artwork is the frosting. But now, that's not to say it's not very important. In fact, I love frosting. So, that's a big part of it, and it's a collaboration with the artists, and I think it's really fun because I learn like how they work and how their process, and it's fun for me to share with them. And I always try to do my best to make it easy for them to understand. I think I've gotten better with, like, these are frightening looking compared to the art guides that I make now. But that's how it goes. You learn as you go along, right? So I'll take all that artwork that they make, and most of it's digital. So they'll make this digital art, right? And they'll send me these files that are, they're typically, like Photoshop files or whatever. They'll send them to me, and then I will merge those die lines on top of them, die lines on top of that artwork in those different digital files. I'll print them out, cut them out. I have a helper who helps me sometimes. I also have a machine that I call the intern, and it will cut out pieces for me, but only white. And I'll make a prototype, finalized color prototype, one finalized color prototype that has all the text in it, has all the art with the pop-ups, and it looks finished. It looks like a book you could buy in the store, right? Well, once I build that goes off to a manufacturer, because let me tell you something, I don't make all these books. I couldn't make all these books. I would still be working on the first 1,000 of my first book if I was the only one making them, right? So there are hand manufacturers all over the world that I've worked with to be able to bring my books to all the great readers out there, everyone who enjoys pop-up books. And so we'll talk about that part of the manufacturing process in a bit. Or maybe we'll do it right now. I think this is a video. Yeah. So, like I said, I'm going to pause this for just a sec. Oh. Nope. I'm going to go back. All right. So, like I said, I make one prototype, right? I make one color prototype. And then I also have all these digital files for the printer. So a printer and a hand assembler, usually it's all in one company. They will assemble, mass produce the book, right? Throughout the whole process, well, let's get started. First, they have to print out all the pieces, and they're going to print it out on these giant printers. They're as big as a bus, and they'll print it out on these giant sheets of paper of cardstock called, these are nesting sheets. So it's all the pieces of a pop-up are nested on these sheets. Usually one of my books is maybe 3 or 4 of these sheets and has all the pieces. There are all these technicians that will like check, make sure the color is right. So they'll check it every few thousand, pages. And then what the next step is actually making die lines. Now, this is an old video. They don't use these bandsaws anymore to cut the grooves for all the different die pieces. Now, a die, what they're doing is they're making a die, right? And a die is like a giant cookie cutter. And there's a sharp edge on some of that metal, and there is also a dull edge. The dull edge makes a fold mark, and a sharp edge makes the cut marks for all these different pieces. You can see like they're all jammed together, all those different pieces. It looks like, a bunch of different cookie cutters, and that's for several different pages and also different pieces. It's all jammed together, and they're going to make that die so that they can punch out all those pop-up pieces. And they actually use, like a hammer to hammer in. Now they use, instead of cutting those grooves with a bandsaw, they actually use a laser cutter. But they still have to do some of this stuff by hand, like, putting in the metal inside those grooves for the die. So what happens next is they actually lay that die over, or under, rather, they lay the paper over all those printed sheets over the die, and it punches out all those pieces. They don't leave the sheet, but they're very easily removed. That's the next step. The next step is actually called scrapping. And they actually take all the extra paper, scrap it, they use it for, they recycle it and use it for other books. And then they separate out all the pieces. And like, they're really rough. Like, you look at this and you're like, oh my God, you're gonna tear something. But they're wearing gloves so they don't get paper cuts. Can you imagine all the paper cuts you get? But these people, they're experts. And I work with them, throughout this entire process. I used to be able to go a lot more. I mean, obviously with COVID, I can't go anywhere. But now it's just, we all, we're throughout the entire production process, we're talking back and forth. If my name is on a book, I make sure that every step of the way, if there's a problem, that I have a solution for them or figure out one with them. Oftentimes they come up with the solutions for me because they're experts. So they scrap, and then they organize all the pieces, and then the next step is actually forming teams who will recreate one pop-up for each page, thousands and thousands of times over. And all of these assemblers are skilled hand assemblers. Like they are skilled hand laborers or whatever. They're incredible. They know their stuff. And I'm usually in contact with them when I go visit or whenever they see a problem, whenever they have a solution, whenever they need my help figuring something out, or they need my okay to figure it out. So we work together in a team to bring these books, it's really from my hands starting out to the publisher's hands to the manufacturing company, and all of these experts' hands to the hands of readers all over the world. And so they're valuable to the entire process. Making a pop-up book, just one pop-up book, it is a collaborative effort. And so there's a lot of people going into making it the best that they can, and to make books exciting for everyone, for young people, for old people, for everyone who likes to explore within a book. So all the different pages, after they've been built, they're glued together, and then the books are pressed, they dry, then a cover is put on and glued, and then that dries and it's pressed again so that it's clamped together so that it can dry properly and that all the pop-ups are nice and flat inside. It's then shrink wrapped and packaged up and boxed and shipped out. I usually have to be done with my books about 8 months before it's on shelf. Now, this last part where she's like, oh, I'm putting on the covers. It's very zen in here. It's not quite that fabulous for doing the covers, but that gives you an idea. Just put the cover on, glue it. And, eventually after the books have been manufactured and then, traveling overseas and then distributed, you get your very own pop-up in your hands. This is it really is a handmade work of art. Each one is a separate handmade piece of art. Like I said, my books have been translated in all these different languages all over the world. It's an incredible thing, considering as a kid, I didn't even know that this was something that people could do. And to be able to reach readers from all over the world, people who are interested, people who are excited about learning and finding an adventure within a book, to be able to get somebody inside a book and to enjoy and bring them happiness brings me more joy than you can possibly imagine. I love my job, the job that I didn't know even existed when I was a kid. And I'm very proud of what I do. And I hope to continue to do it for many more years and to continue to change and to continue to evolve with what I do. But always just make really cool, fun, exciting books and pop-ups. So that's that with the video. I'm going to stop sharing that. You get to see my face again. Let's see. I think am I projecting now? Can you guys?
You're projecting. You're fine.
So yeah. So that is what I do. Those are some of the books that I do. We'll open it up for questions in a bit, but and I think first I was going to talk about a couple things. So last time. I was supposed to, before all this happened, I was supposed to be visiting you, right? And I was really excited to go, actually, come. And at the time I was supposed to be, where did that go? Oh, here it is. At the time that I was supposed to be visiting, this was the pop that I think that I put on my YouTube channel, All We Can Do to Stop Coronavirus. All the way back then, and I had made this pop. I do this thing where I do a time lapse of just building something very quickly off the top of my head and building this, wash your hands pop. I know that Frank really dug that one, but I keep this is just something that I like I said, this was just like, I made this, I think within like a half hour, 45 minutes, but I know a lot of how to do this stuff. Sometimes it's in my head, but yeah, just to show yeah, you can make this stuff on your own. But I think what I'll do, I think I'll give you a little demo of how to make a pop-up. Maybe I'll make something very quickly. Is that cool with everyone? I'm going to imagine you're saying yes.
Yeah, that's very cool. I'll say yes for them.
Yeah. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn around my camera after I drink some water. All right, here's what we're going to do. We're going to try and make this work. All right. All right, here we go. Let's turn it around. You can see my messy, messy studio. Okay, let's turn this down. All right, there we go. All right. So right here is where I'm going to work. Let's make sure I've got some cardstock. All right, that's what everything starts off as, with cardstock. Okay. I'm just going to fold it in half right down the center, and I'm going to make what's called a hamburger fold. All right, can you see that? Yeah, you can see that. And I'm going to make it, I think I'm going to make it just a little, let's see, can you see it? There, that's pretty good. Okay, so let's take some scissors, right? I say I use a lot of scissors. I'm going to make our card a little smaller too, so it's not like ginormous. Right, there we go. Okay, so I made my card. This is my base page. Right, that's what I'm going to start off on. I'm going to build off of this. Ooh, I've already got some scrap here. Ooh. Oh, I'm going to use one of my tools here. So I'm going to use this just to make sure that my edges are square, because even though most of the time I get it right by eyeing, I can usually eye it, but it's better to be sure, right? You always got to be sure. Okay, so this is the substrate. This is now the pages of a pop-up. Okay, the pages of a pop-up. Can you see okay? Let me make sure. There we go. Is that better? Yeah, that's better. The pages of a pop-up, the pages are actually the engine of a pop-up, right? So opening up the page, the energy that is used to open that causes all the pop-up to move, right? So we're going to start off. I'm going to make see, let's get another piece of cardstock because someone had a request that I make a pop-up dragon. Okay, so I'm going to do that. So I'm going to make, I just cut off the corner of that piece of paper. See, I cut it off. I sort of made a bump. And see this edge here? I'm going to fold it in half, and I'm going to make what's called, but I'm going to fold it along these edges. It's going to make what's called a V-fold. See how I did that? That is a V-fold. And what's cool about V-folds is they make pop-ups move. And I'm going to line it up along the center here. In fact, I'm going to make most of our pop-up, I think, out of V-folds. So I'm going to line it up with the center and make sure the center fold of the V-fold is lined up with the center of the base page. And I'm going to use some of my tape, and I'm going to tape it down just like this. Like I said, you could use masking tape. You can use clear tape if you want, but sometimes it will crack after a while. So you got to be careful. All right, so let's see how this V-fold looks. Ooh, that looks good. Look at that. Ooh, but what doesn't look so good? It's sticking out. Look at that. It's sticking out. So let's see here. Let's see what we can do to change that. Well, I think I'll fold it. I think I'm just going to fold it inwards. I don't know, something like that. And what I'm doing is I'm actually, see how that looks. Oh, I want to do that. I want to make a fold. Let's see, let's make the fold. That's pretty good. Like that. And see, it actually made a V-fold. Look at that. It made a V-fold that goes inward. See how that is? All right. So now, look, it fits better inside the pop. Nice. So let's see. So, okay, so I can see part of this coming. Maybe I need some more V-folds. I think I'm going to add 2. What do? It's a V-fold because it's shaped kind of like a V, right? And we fold it in half down the center. And you make sure. So I did that. There's one. And I'm going to put the V-fold on this side. It's kind of big though. I'm going to do that. I'm going to cut it off. And wherever there is a fold, or wherever you see a fold, you can put a V-fold. I'm going to put this one right here. And it has to be lined up with this fold here. Just like that. Now, if you want to learn more about making pop-ups, you can go to my YouTube channel. I have one, and I also, or you can follow me on Instagram or all that other stuff. I've got all kinds of crafts that I do. In fact, I think we're doing all Halloween crafts next week, or at least we're gonna showcase some of our older Halloween crafts. But every week there's always something new. I'm doing a series with that is called that there are different templates that you can use that kind of align with some teaching units in school. So we're doing the 7 Wonders of the World and insects. So we're doing that. So you can make something, you can learn about science a little, but then you can also or history, but then you can also make a cool pop-up. Okay, so look, I've made 1, 2, 3 V-folds. No, wait, 4 V-folds, right? This is just the start. Now, it may not look like a dragon yet, but I've got some ideas. Let's see. Well, we need something down here. We need a body or something. I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to add another V-fold, but I'm going to have it going the opposite way. right? So I'm gonna do this, I fold it, going that way. And then now those V-folds, they're exactly the same width, or rather angle right here. They're exactly the same. See how they meet up in the center? See how that is? Isn't that cool? So next, we are going to make something called well, sometimes some people call it a twister. I guess we could call it that. Let's see. Does that look like it's going to be too big? It looks like it's going to be big. Why about there? We're going to bridge the area. We're going to bridge this side and this side. We're going to bridge across. Just kind of like that. There we go. And that way, the body of our dragon... Ooh, I need to do one other thing. I need to move some of this over. So I'm going to use some one-sided tape right here. You know, they asked me, oh, you got to make a dragon. You know, you just can't, when you do that, I can't just go small, right? I have to do something that's, so what it is this bridge, this twister, what happened was, look, I taped it here and I taped it here on this side. And watch what happens. Look, the bridge across, it bridges across, but some of the pieces you're going to see, look, it hits there. So we got to cut some of the edges off so that it allows this to work. Let's check it. Ooh, it's almost there. Look, and I see where something is about to cause a problem. Now look at that closed and open. All right, so we're starting to get a body. So I think what I'll do is, let's see, think I'll add some wings. And I'm going to put these wings just on one side of the V-fold. See? I'm just going to put on one side. When you're making these pop-ups, you got to make sure that you don't have too much. You see that double stick showing there? You got to kind of cover it up. Either cut it away or cover it, because otherwise your pop-up's going to start, it's going to start sticking to itself. Now, you know what? When I was making this, and I was worried about making a small page, look, I kind of want big wings. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to make the outside pages bigger in a bit. But I just want to make this a big, cool dragon. So let's see here. Let's do there. Let's do the other wing. We'll tape it I'm just going to double stick it right under that spot right there. Frank, can you all see me? Okay, can you see what I'm doing?
We can see you just fine. Thank you.
I'm assuming yes. There we go. Cool. All right, now let's add a tail. Let's see, I want a tail on the bottom. And like when I said in the beginning, when I was making things, in the beginning, I'm just cutting out shapes and I'm seeing how they work with the pop-up. Now, it doesn't look like much yet, but I'll start drawing and cutting away from it, and it'll start to begin to look like something a little closer to a dragon. Right now, we're just trying to figure out if it'll work. All these different pieces. It looks blocky and kind of ugly, but we'll keep cutting away. Once I just want to get some basic, I want to block out some of the shapes so you can start to see where the body's going. There. And now that I've decided, I want to make the dragon I'm going to make the base pages bigger. I think what I'm going to do is fix this, get rid of that fold. We don't need that fold anymore. I'm going to change things. See, that's what's great too. If you make a mistake, you can just, reattach it or rebuild a part of it, and it can be something else. So I'm never deterred if I make something I don't like. I just cut it off and change it, because you can always redesign things. Okay, let's see here. Oh, I think I know what I'm going to do now. There we go. I'm going to start cutting away. at these things. There we go. I'm just giving this a little bit more form. In a minute, I'll start drawing on it, but there's the wings. Mine's going to be sort of a, well, maybe a little more of a, like, sort of a two-legged dragon, maybe. See, I need to make, so now I just cut these pieces. So I'm going to cut 2 legs. All right, let's see. If we put those legs, glue right there and there. Let's see what we can get here. It's 1 leg, it's 2 legs. Oh, that's not good. Look at that. That doesn't work. So you just keep on trying. Let's see. Ooh, that's pretty good. Look at that. Look at that. Now we just need a head, right? Need a head. All right, so let's cut one out. Ooh, like I've even got like I've got a pretty good. Let's cut a new one. That we need something different. There we go. There we go. Let's move all this out of the way. Look at that mess. See, look at the mess that I've made. It's a mess. It's a mess. Okay, let's see. There, and let's give him some horns, or her some horns. Nice. Nice, nice, nice. Ooh, it looks kind of like Rodan. I don't know if you know who Rodan is. Oof, he always used to give Godzilla a headache. But it was a little dragony. Let's see. So there. Now our pop-up doesn't fit inside the page right now, but all we got to do. Ooh, that's nice. All we have to do to make it fit inside the page is add more paper. Look at this. I'm going to cheat. Watch this. When your pop-up doesn't fit inside, all you got to do is cut bigger pages to fit it inside and glue them on. And what I do is I always split those cover pages in half before I glue them on, or tape them on for that matter. And I'm just using double stick to tape this into place. So this goes there. We'll do the other side too. When you're making a cover for a pop-up and you want to make the cover bigger, that from your pop-up, if your pop-up is sticking out, make sure that you always cut the larger pieces. Don't fold it with the fold down, like you can glue another fold on top of the fold, because it will sometimes it will make your pop-up not work as well. I'm going to also make I'm going to bring down this head just a bit. There we go. There we go. How's that look? There's a pop-up dragon, just as requested. All righty. Okay. Well, now does anybody? Oops. Let's put this.
That was
are we
amazing.
up for questions?
Yeah, I've got a couple questions for you here. Let me give you the one for the person who's been most patient. This came in 1 hour ago. This poor person's been waiting, who wrote that they also grew up drawing dinosaurs and animals. So they're in your ballpark, and they're currently studying to become a paleontologist or a paleo artist. So what's your favorite dinosaur? And how long did it take you to do your first book?
Let me show you this book. It's really cool.
Okay.
It has all these cool pull tabs. Anyways, Frank, did you have questions for me? Does anyone have any questions? You want to put them in the chat? Anyone?
Can you? Okay, can you hear me now, Matthew? Can you hear me, Matthew? You're smiling, but I can't tell if you're hearing me. I'm unmuted. Oh, that's interesting, Brian. Got any suggestions? Because he's not hearing me.
Oh, someone just asked me. Okay, Kathy Irwin just asked me a question. Where do you get your ideas for your books? What proportion come from your ideas versus other people's ideas? Okay, so it's like how. Okay, so first question: how do you get ideas? Well, they come anywhere. I mean, you get inspiration from things, whether you like. There are a lot of different places where it might come from. Something I do a lot of media tie-in stuff lately. So if there's like upcoming movies or there's a fan base for something that's really popular, I always do so I'm a big geek about like science fiction and comic books and cartoons and all this stuff and TV shows that resonate with me. I really am a fan of almost every single thing that I work on. So that's where it comes from. I might like half the time I'm pitch things from my publishers, and then the other half I'm the one pitching stuff. So it's like it's half and half. And then the other part of that was I think that was the whole thing. It depends, and like the ideas of the things that happen in the book. I'm usually the one that makes up. I do research and then I figure out, okay, this is a popular thing in this. This is a popular thing. What are the things that are most interesting to see three-dimensionally? And then, I work with those teams and we talk about it together. And when it's something that's just mine, then it's much easier. What's my favorite dinosaur? And how long did it take to create your first book? I think the first one took about 8 months to create. Usually takes me about 4 to 6 months for a book, maybe even less if it's a small book. My favorite dinosaur, that's tough because it always changes. But I usually like Triceratops or any ceratopsian, any of those like horned, shielded headed dinosaurs. I love those.
Okay, Matthew, can you hear me now?
Any other questions?
Can you hear me now, Matthew? No,
okay, so let me tell you about, I will say, you asked me how long did it take to create my first book. My first book released back in, I think, 1999, and it was a really weird book, a pop-up book of phobias. And it was a book I didn't even think was going to come out. I was working with Robert Sabuda at the time, and he couldn't do the book, so I ended up doing it, and I didn't even think it was going to be produced. Oh, my earplugs. Oh, can you hear Frank asking a question? No. I don't know why I can't.
Okay, we're going to try it out. Can you hear us?
Okay. Hey, Frank, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here, but can you hear me?
Why I can't hear that?
I don't know.
I don't know why. Oh, here we go. I'm sorry, Frank. Okay. I'm there. Frank.
Okay, are we here now?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I'm a machine.
I have to tell you, the person who asked that question about dinosaurs in your first book said that they've been drawing, they're a kindred soul. They've been drawing dinosaurs for years, and they're studying to become a paleontologist and a paleo artist. So
excellent. Well, we need you. So that's the thing right now I'm real freaked out about when you're drawing dinosaurs is all the feathers everywhere, right? Oh, that kind of like, I'm still having I know that dinosaurs have feathers, certain ones do. And it kind of makes them even more exotic and strange than they even were before. So I love that they have feathers now. It's still hard for me I think they're even scarier now with feathers. So anyways, congratulations to that person who's being a paleo artist, because we need you.
I think you've wowed them, because that's all the questions I've got. If there's anybody out
Cool.
there who's still got a question, we'll give you 2 minutes to type it in.
There were a couple, I think.
Here comes one. Your book about Diagon Alley and Game of Thrones looked like platforms or stages for the readers to tell their own stories. Why do you go there rather than to the traditional page-by-page style?
Well, I mean, that book is page by page. I mean, you can look at it page by page and like kind of learn about things. But part of some of these books is about exploring and kind of making your own story at times, I think, because you can read the books, you can read the whatever. Like, I want you to be able to experience that place in a way, and take it home with you and be able, So I think that's what those books are, rather than going to a storybook. I mean, we've seen the movies, we've read the book, we've read the Harry Potter books. Like, to be able to reenact that, I don't know if it would be the same thing, So it's cool to be able to make like sort of the environments.
Okay, thank you. I got a question from your early presentation. Two people asked more or less the same one. You said that when you were growing up and when you had your first career choices, you didn't want to be a pop-up artist. What did you want to be, and how did you become a pop-up artist?
Okay, so I have a really weird background. Okay, so I left that part out. Okay, sorry about that. When I was, so I went to school in undergraduate, I studied biology. I always had an interest in science, but I was always doing art on the side, right? And I finished school. My parents were like, there's no way you're going to be able to be an artist. We're not paying for you. So they, I actually got into med school, and I was going to go and be a doctor. Now, when I was undergrad school, I always took art classes along with my science stuff. So it was kind of like my minor. And I took a year off. I lived in New York, and I was like, I can't go to med school. I can't do this. I want to do something I love. And I was really lucky that my parents, I left this part out of my thing, but I was really lucky my parents were behind me, and they said, listen, you can study something creative, but it's got to be something that we don't have to pay for you so that you can, make a living. And I was actually going to be an industrial designer. I love toy design. So I was going to be an industrial designer. I actually almost got a job, or I almost got an internship at Kenner, but then Kenner was dissolved and went to Hasbro. And instead, I worked at Nickelodeon for a little bit with animation, doing something called Blue's Clues. I don't know if everyone knows Blue's Clues. I think everyone's grown up with it. And I hated working at Nickelodeon. And at the same time, Robert Sabuda, I was working with him, and he was like, hey, I need some help on these books. Will you help me? And I said, sure. And I was just, I didn't want to do pop-ups. I didn't even have an idea about, that this was a viable thing. And so I worked with him, and I started to kind of like it. And I thought, oh, well, maybe I can sell a book. Maybe I can do this too. And I sold my first book project, which was, I was hired for my first one, which was Nightmare, or Pop-Up Book of Phobias. And then my second one was Animal Opposites. That was the first one I was able to sell. And it was a book about animals opposites, right? And then, then my next books that I sold were these insect books that led to the dinosaur ones that were this big, huge success. And then I've been able to I never stopped. And I probably made about 50 books after all these years in my 20-year book, children's book career. And so it was a weird way to get to it. I stumbled on it, being a pop-up book artist, but I had a lot of it was training on the job. And I also had an interest, and I guess I had some talent at illustrating and making things. So I was able to develop it, but it took years. It took years to be able to, probably took about 2 or 3 years just to sort of understand things enough. But I always, when people ask me about oh, I want to do this, what do I need? And you need curiosity. You need to be curious. You need to have determination and patience. And I'd seem like the least patient person in the world, right? I'm hyperactive and all that sort of stuff. But I am dogged when it comes to figuring something out and exhausting my resources when it comes to figuring out that mechanics or whatever. So you need that. And you need to be open to failing and being wrong, and, you know, and also listening to somebody else. I mean, I think most people need to need to be an apprentice for a while, because you can't just like, bam, you're on the scene and kablow, you know. So yeah, I apprenticed, and there were a lot of things that I didn't think were good designs, but I worked on, because that was what, you know, the person I was learning from, you know, that's what we were doing. And you know, move on and whatever. You have respect for all that beautiful work and everything, but you know, you kind of do your own thing. And so whenever I have people that work for me, which I'm actually getting ready to look for somebody here soon again, you know, it always has to be someone who's patient and who has a critical mind as far as you know, problem solver, but then, you know, has a vision in their head, you know, has an artistic vision. So it's a weird thing. Let's see, my favorite contemporary pop-up creators: David Carter, Robert Sabuda. There's some new ones. There's a new guy, my friend Jean Paul. I'm trying to remember his last name right now. It's a blank. Who is doing amazing stuff, because he's not afraid to try weird things, and he's breaking a lot of rules, which I really love. There's a lot of artists I can't remember all of them I like, but you want to know the truth? I don't really look at too many people's work, and I don't collect pop-up books, because I collect things. I mean, I might get books that I like if I'm interested in the way the engineering is, but I feel like sometimes if I look around too much, I'm going to be influenced by it. So I want to kind of keep that space in my head. I don't want to copy somebody else, but I mean, I'm inspired by them, but I don't want to. I don't know. I feel like I want to go my own path on certain things. But I, you know, if I see something cool and new, do I take requests? I've always wanted to see a book.
I've got a question too. Is there somebody you'd like to work
Hamburgers.
with in the future as an artist?
Ooh, there's lots of different illustrators. I couldn't even name them all. Gosh. Oh, I mean, I would love to do something funny with someone like Tom Engelberger, or who does the what's he do, the Origami Yoda books, and he's so funny. He's so great. So I'd love to do something that was like fun and sort of comic book and sort of stuff. Who else would I love to work with? You know, wouldn't you know, you ask that question and I like totally lose all the people in my head who have like, there are a lot. Like sometimes I want to do more like sort of art books, and there's a couple of artists that are graffiti artists. I love street art and I love urban art. And there's a street artist named Nikos, who has beautiful work. Now it's a little gruesome, so I don't know if it's definitely not something that it would be a limited edition sort of thing, because he does sort of these, you know, they have sort of these X-ray animals, but it's just beautifully, you know, executed and colored. And I would love to do something like that. Oh, there's a lot of artists. I don't even know. I lose those names as soon as I get up here and talk in front of you.
That happens. I've got one last question for you. It says, can we see the Harry Potter book that looks cool on the shelf? I'm not quite sure what.
Oh, so this one here is let me see if I can get a good shot. Okay, let's see. I got all these lights, but I want to make sure you can see. Okay, so there is the book, right? And you open it up, and so it's like, you can see it's like all dimensional sort of different things, and you can pull these different tabs and stuff happens. Like you can look, like if you look here, like owls come out from the background, and then you can look inside at the same time, like all these different things happen that you can explore. Like on the side here, you can pull this tab. Let me see, it's hard to show you, but pull a tab up top, and then see there's Hagrid and Harry coming through the magical wall of bricks. So there's all kinds of stuff like that. So you can explore and pull the tabs. This is a brand new one. You can look inside the leaky cauldron and see characters. And you can enjoy it like a regular book, but then it also opens up into the... This one is cool because it has, I love this pop-up of the Hogwarts Express. It was really hard to engineer. So see, there's the Hogwarts Express. It's like totally 3D. And there's one of the train cars, and you can actually, let's see if I can see, and pull the tab, and the door will close. The scenes will change, and look, there's a Dementor that comes out of the top. But the scenes change. You can explore in the front and back. Actually, there's a little Easter egg in the back. My niece and nephew are 2 characters walking in the back of the train station. So it's that kind of thing where you can explore, you can look at it like a book, and it's got text in it as well, but then you can also display it. So it's not just a display thing. That's like an extra added bonus.
Thank you very much. I don't have any more questions, but let me express for all of us who have been listening, this has been a wonderful evening. I've loved the presentation and the enthusiasm and the creating of the dinosaur. On behalf of the person who requested it, I am sure I give you her highest praise.
Well, thank you. Thank you. It was so much fun. Thank you just for letting me be able to come into your computers or wherever. You know, we all feel very isolated now, and to be able to even just do this and reach out, it does this this pop-up artist, it does my heart good. So thank you for even inviting me.
Thank you. And for all viewers that are listening, thank you. And this is the end of our presentation. So good night.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.